Hey, Chris, how you been?
Good. How are
Long,
you?
I'm doing great. Long time no see. Huh? Will you be in Milan?
Still working it out. I hope so.
Okay, great. Well, if you make it, let's catch up and discuss what recent trends are going on in our countries. Tell me about what's going on in Korea. I've been reading a lot about what's going on there, but you live there. Tell us what's going on.
Well, it's a little bit of a tumultuous situation at the moment. As you might have heard, the Korean president was impeached, and currently the impeachment is being considered by the Constitutional Court in Korea. They've now announced that they're going to decide this Friday whether to uphold the impeachment, in which case the president will be permanently removed and there'll be new elections. Or they can restore the president to power, in which case he'll continue to be the president until new elections in a couple of years. And so the country is waiting with bated breath to find out, are we going to have a new election and a new president, or is the President Yoon going to come back into office?
Absolutely.
Either way, people will be very unhappy, no matter what.
And what does that mean to a, let's say, fairly stable country in terms of labor relations, employment rights, union activity, etc.?
That's a great question. I think the bigger implication for employers will be if the Constitutional Court upholds the impeachment, because then there'll be a new election. And if the opposition party wins that election, they'll have unified control of the government and a very big legislative majority. And it's extremely likely that they would pass pro-labor reforms in that instance. The most likely one would be something that's called the Yellow Envelope Act, which is basically a pro-union law that they already passed, but it was vetoed by President Yoon before his impeachment. So if they have unified control of the government, it's widely expected that they will pass that law again. And the big effect of it will be that companies will become obliged to bargain collectively with unions that represent employees of their outside contractors if they substantially control working conditions. So that will affect a lot of big companies in Korea, and they'll have to think about how to structure their relationships with outside contractors to try to not be obligated to bargain with those unions if possible.
That's interesting. I mean, you don't only have to bargain, sorry, if this happens, with your own union, but also those of your contractors now. So if you outsource some services, you would need to negotiate and bargain with the unions of those contractors. That's very interesting.
So tell me what's happening in Mexico. What should employers and employment lawyers know about the goings on in Mexico?
Well, Mexico has been in the eye of the hurricane, and with our northern borders, neighbor, the U.S., and our farther northern neighbor, which is Canada. You know that since Mr. Trump took office in the United States, well, he's been accusing Canada and Mexico of being advantageous vis-a-vis the United States. That's why he's imposing tariffs and other type of commercial punishments against both countries. But now he started against all of the countries in the world now. And that's interesting for labor and employment relations and impact because, as you may imagine, those companies that have for years invested in Mexico now are afraid of losing a share of the market in the United States because they are manufacturing in Mexico, because of the tariffs being imposed, because of the rules of origin being applied in a different way that the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement really provides for, etc. And for labor employment lawyers, that means, unfortunately, lack of jobs and some jobs being lost because a lot of companies are really thinking of leaving the country, which is really a shame. It's really a pity. And the country has always been, Mexico has always been a country very open to foreign investment, to domestic investment, and employers and employees have been always very happy producing in Mexico. So if this happens, and it happened yesterday, Liberation Day, April the 2nd, that's interesting because Mr. Trump decided not to make it on April the 1st. So nobody will interpret it was April Fool's Day. But that's what's going on. And with, free union elections, more free than ever, the consequences may be important for Mexican and Canadian economies if this goes on.
Oh, no doubt. Are you already starting to see inquiries from clients about how to respond to this, and questions about how to manage, adjusting their workforces and responding to these challenging economic times?
Absolutely. As we've always said, I mean, capital or investment has no nation. Capital and investment have interests. So what happens if their larger market, which will be the United States, suddenly shuts down and prevents those goods produced in Mexico and vis-a-vis Canada from entering their market and therefore not being sold as they have always been sold over there? Well, that represents cut reduction, reductions in workforce, and vis-a-vis. No? So yes, we are receiving a lot of queries, a lot of questions regarding what do I do? Do I need to bargain with my union? Do I need to reduce my force? How do I do to reduce my force? Because they budget, and if they have their predictions or their estimates as how many cars, for example, they will be able to export to the United States and how many employees they need to assemble those automobiles, well, they make their numbers. So yes, we're seeing that.
Yeah, and I guess you have to advise on a variety of contingencies too, because President Trump has been a little bit capricious with these tariff announcements, and it's hard to predict what he's going to do next. So I would imagine that you're getting a lot of inquiries about how to respond to uncertainty.
Absolutely. You said a little bit more ambitious. He's been a lot ambiguous and capricious, of course. No, but Chris, this I can say that openly, this has strengthened Mexico. Trump, oddly enough, has united us Mexicans with our president, and our president is doing things correctly, I would say now. And she's been very cautious, not cautious, I would say prudent. That's the word. And that has strengthened us Mexicans. Our unions are united with the president. The private sector is united with the president. And Mexico is working hard all together to become even more united. So it's working good.
It's very interesting to hear. It was so great to hear those your perspective and knowledge about what's happening in Mexico and how it affects employers and employment council.
And likewise, Chris, it's a pleasure. And we gotta continue this conversation, hopefully in Milan or somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.